Hey guys, it's Matt. Welcome back to the still unnamed book called Unnamed Reality Book. And people are saying, that's a lot of chapters, Matt, for a half page. It is. It really is. I'm surprised it's this long myself. There's a lot of stove videos coming when our half pages. This is almost done, guys. A little bit more, the final half page, and then, I don't know, what do? Just frolic around together under the palm trees, I guess. Chapter 35 is called Principles to Help Guide Real People Through This Reality. Matt, this won't work for NPCs or other types of entities here with us like Melvin? Nope, this is only for real people. Who knows how many of us there are? Number 1, if it's unclear what to do for yourself or what direction to take in life, or if you're just starting out, simply observe what the system wants or what authority wants you to do. Then do the opposite. Or get as close as you can to the opposite of what it wants from you, or more importantly, what it wants you to become. This is yet another part of the rule of opposites that I don't think has ever been broken. Stop and pause and look around. Observe. What does it want from you? What is it baiting you into? Don't look at the circumstances themselves as much as assuming there's something rather dark behind the circumstances, because if it comes from the outer screen, there is. The outer screen or ring of reality has shaped all of society and culture at this point. The selfie would not exist without its say-so. Observe what it wants. Does it want you angry? Fearful? Usually both. What does it want you pursuing as your top goals in life? What does it want you to covet? We covet what the not milk puts forth every day, Clarice. Never give it the sustenance it wants. It likely lives off these energies. There are 10,000 simple applications of this principle, and some are so basic, they're overlooked by most of us. Does the system want you, for example, as a Puerto Rican, to closely identify with your camp and march in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, waving your flag? Well, that's rather benign, Matt. It is, but it's not milk, nevertheless. Of course it wants people doing that, so never do it. I'm sorry, as trivial as an act like that seems, celebrating a national heritage or a flag is supporting camps. It's 100% not milk, because camps are used by it to create separation. Camps always benefit the not milk. Always. You can't have it both ways. You can't see a dark reality and then choose to separate from it and at the same time align with ethnic camps, nationalism, race, or skin color. Flags, borders, and ethnicity is the not milk queen on the chessboard. The system will always push circumstances that incrementally lead to separation among people. So what to do for yourself is obvious. Never join a camp. I'm not saying to reject the wisdom of, say, your Native American ancestry. Not at all. I'm not saying you should not be proud of your heritage or your ancestors, whatever it may be. But that's something for you to treasure. Why share it with the not milk? It's public systems. So if you lead with this in a job interview, for example, you've done exactly what it wants you to do. Oh, hi, I'm a Native American cisgendered Sioux elder who goes by they, them. What other not milk descriptors can be squeezed into one sentence? If you've chosen as your primary public identity to be something of this place, even using the term Sioux, then you're playing its game on its home turf. So if you're Chinese or Russian or Italian or Sioux or 80% Cherokee, do you think that matters one bit outside of this place, outside of the material plane of existence? It only is relevant to that arm of the Vitruvian man. The other one is never acknowledged. My family, of course, well, a portion of it, they want to hold on to their Irish heritage. They just snuggle up to Dublin whenever possible. I don't think they understand the difference between Belfast and Dublin. One's a totally separate country called Northern Ireland. They don't even know that, but they want to get close to it. You know what? They're nice people. I could care less. Here's where I am right now. National heritage flags, ain't going to wave them, ain't going to march in no parade. The troubles is what happens when somebody gets close to not milk. That's the troubles. What's the only description of your life it does not want you putting forth? What category, tag, or title is never mentioned by the not milk and its minions? What dissolves the camps of skin color and nationalism and brings everybody together? The spiritual side of the tug of war, of course. We are beings who have another side to us. A spiritual side that is not adequately represented in this material plane. I need to rewrite that. It's basically not represented at all in society and culture. It doesn't exist as far as they're concerned. In this way, all real people are essentially the same, and in a way that makes a flag look ridiculous. This is why the Not Milk and its minions, like Don Lemon, will never mention one spiritual nature. It dissolves many camps and attachments to this world. And remember, we are discussing the rule of opposites. Because the Not Milk never goes here, does it? It'll never go there. You never tune into Don Lemon and say, I'd like to discuss our spiritual side today. Never. It essentially proves who and what you and I really are. The rule of opposites. Never goes there. That's the best news of all time to us. The Not Milk takes what it knows is a spiritual being. It knows who we are, and it is a master at reducing it into getting it to believe it as a lesser thing, where the elements and characteristics of this place define it. And then most people, of course, get in line and bow down to it and define themselves by the things it says to use in its definition. People out in a social situation. First question, oh, what do you do? Always the things of this place. Oh, thank you for asking. I do the TPS reports for Medtronic. Oh, yeah. Oh, what do you, on a headstone or a gravestone, the things of this world. Achieved senior partner at litigious, horrible law firm. Once a law firm ran an ad late at night. I had about 4 beers in me, and they were suing table saw manufacturers because of accidents. I had to call up. I probably told you about this. I had a few beers in me. I said, how do you live with yourself? You know what? If you slide a damn 2x4 across a table saw spinning at 40,000 revolutions a second and you cut your finger off, shit happens. Stop suing people, you monsters. Matt, you just took your ire out on the call center in the Philippines probably. It's after hours call center, you jackass. I specifically asked that. I said, whoever's answering this phone, do you work for this law firm or are you a call center? If you're a call center, God bless us everyone, sir, and good night. Oh, you work for the law firm, the person said. And here I go. Oh, sorry, let's get back to the chapter. As a reminder, we're discussing the rule of opposites and to basically do the opposite of what you identify it wants from you. Some examples are rather trivial. Told you a million times. I'll be quick. This has to make the book. I think I've gotten over 200 notices in the mail about my airbag recall and the dangers of continuing to drive my 2008 Scion XB. I got one this week. That is an update. That's not what I'm reading. I got one a few days ago as I'm talking to you now. The Not Milk has been harassing me with these letters for years, telling me what it wants me to do. Therefore, I'll never take the car in for a new airbag. You see, they're trying too hard. Every envelope looks a little bit different. The presentations are a little different. One time a FedEx came. I might have had to sign for it. Then it's in a manila envelope. Then it's a little card. He who doth protest too much, whatever the heck that means. They're trying too hard. They find ways to make the offer look so pleasant, saying everything will be taken care of. All new parts will be installed at no cost to you. You just sit here in our waiting room and you put your feet up and we'll bring Judy around, give you a little massage. Would you like a donut? You come in and you bring your car in for new chips. Well, new airbag is what it says. So people like us are skeptical of this thing. And we said, wait a second. It's trying too hard here. This is about far more than caring about my health in case the shards go flying all over the car if I ever whack a telephone pole or something. It's trying too hard. Now, nobody around us would ever see it that way, would ever notice what's really happening. We're not crazy, folks. We can see through its presentation every time now. Everyone around us can't, so they consider us delusional. The evil genius of it, you could make phone calls for a month and talk to everybody along the line. Where are these notices coming from? Who's sending them out? Who's paying for it? You could go, it's the government is sponsoring it because it cares about your health. You could talk to managerial levels at every level of where these notices are coming from. And everyone would say back to you, see, this is what's so evil genius about Not Milk. They would say, sir, you're paranoid. Everybody here, this is a collective effort to save lives. The evil genius of Not Milk is nobody's in on it consciously. They believe they're actually just helping. Now we know, okay, when the Not Milk tries this hard, that there's something else going on. We can ponder it some other time. But okay, let's just say, you remember back in 2004, 2005, and 6, there was a problem with an airbag, and that it would go away. All right, it would go, they'd fix it, it would make the news, there'd be some accidents, some shards would hit people's noses, it would become a permanent part of people's noses, they basically would look like the Tin Man, then it would go away. When it continues, decade after decade, 100 million recalls after 100 million recalls, notices after notices, forever, ongoing, ongoing. Something else is going on here. When we notice this something else, that is insane to the people around us. You see, if it was legitimate, it would have been a problem for 1 or 2 years, and then they would have fixed it, and that would be the end of it. What if remember the Pinto? What was that car that was exploding? The Ford Pinto or something would explode when let's just say that Ford Pintos were still exploding, and they were still selling them. It would be fixed. Then it goes away. Then you say, that's real. That was a real problem that good people work to solve. When it goes on for multiple decades and hundreds of millions and hundreds of millions and hundreds of millions, there's something else going on. I don't want to get into what it is, and they want to put certain chip in your car. I don't want let's just move on. And here's a concept that's very related to this example. Remember the multiplier principle as well. The multiplier principle. The more it wants you to do something from the outer ring and screen, the more you must sense there's something going on and run from that thing it wants you to do. If they had sent me, say, 5 notices over 3 or 4 years, whatever, and then I may consider to take the car in for a new airbag. They became so endlessly persistent, it became very obvious very quickly that taking the car in was extremely important to the not milk for whatever reason. But let's not take this too far. What's going on here is very different than, say, your friendly mechanic, somebody you know, saying you should really consider changing this brake part because it could be hazardous. That's totally different. There's a lot of good people that might make recommendations to your car where you should actually get the work done. Most times somebody or something or even a Pep Boys, when they recommend you should do something on your car, most of the times they're probably giving you good advice. I'm not saying every time somebody says to change rotors to run out of the damn shop, I'm not, okay. Is it a not milk presentation? In addition to it trying too hard, one thing I didn't even mention, I know 100% it does not care one bit about my health, safety, and well-being. Not it from the outer ring and outer screen. Maybe it's certain minions that work for it that are fooled. Sure they do. From its perspective, it does not care one bit whether a shard hits me in the middle of the far. It doesn't care. I know that. So when its presentation becomes grossly over the top, and I know it doesn't care about me getting hit in the head with metal, then there's something else going on. Let me mention what I hinted at earlier one more time because we can take this too far. We do this in our community. We have to be intuitive. This rule of opposites and running in the other direction can be taken too far to people's detriment. If your doctor recommends something to you, the doctor may actually like you and it may actually be good for you just because he or she is in the system. I mean, doctors are major league in the system. Not everyone is on an exact download coming from the outer ring of reality and not milk. Sometimes they actually care and you should trust them. Okay. Matt, you don't have to riddle this with disclaimers. But one cannot blindly apply the rule of opposites here, rejecting every poster in an elementary school that recommends you eat broccoli and leafy greens. Oh, that poster said eat broccoli and leafy greens and it's in a public school. Son, nothing but chocolate for you now. Okay, you got it. Sometimes there are multiple levels inside a single topic. Sure, in 2021, the system wanted most people renting the Carl Weathers movie bought Action Jacksonation. Carl Weathers movie bought... But for sure, it also wanted about 20%, that's my estimation, it wanted 20% in the West not to rent the movie. In this case, the forming of camps and infighting was more important to it. This is usually the case. It rarely wants 100% compliance. It would rather have camps and fighting. It needs 2 ingredients for energy, remember. It takes 2 to tango. Rob Bass, it takes 2 to make a thing go right. It takes 2 to make it out of sight. You could tell when too many people were eager to line up to rent the Carl Weathers movie because, say, Fox News would pop up and introduce Carl Weathers Action Jacksonation renting VCR tape movie Injury. So, Matt, this has got to stop. Okay. You can get your hand stuck. You can get your hand stuck in the VCR. Carl Weathers Injury. Fox News pushed to keep the numbers in check for those who would rent and those who wouldn't rent. The VCR tape injury stories were used to move the slider back the other way because it wanted the 80-20. Also, it needed a scapegoat. It needed a sizable population of people to blame, of anti-Action Jacksonation people for more restrictions, whatever it wanted to bring in the future, more lockdowns. It blamed everything but global charming on the anti-movie renters, didn't it? For at least for a short time, till that quieted down. It used the 2020-2021 scenario to create many hated groups. But of course, from one perspective to the other, the non-renters of the movie, that was a hated group. But there were many hated groups inside groups. Remember my dad being furious out at a grocery store, a little shop, and these young kids came in, and two of them weren't masked up, and they were being loud, and one coughed and sneezed, and he's older, and they were being so inconsiderate, putting him at risk, and he hated them for it. And they were basically like they were like bot murderers because it was amazing from his perspective. He escaped with his life after grabbing his Quaker Oats, and then he hated them for it. That's the microcosm of the macro was those that didn't rent the movie, of course. This adversary knew the exact number of non-movie renters that it needed to create in order to put forth into society the most friction possible. As many people hating as many other people as possible. It is evil genius in this regard. So say, for example, it wanted, and I was right, it wanted the 80-20 ratio. Those that did, those that did not. Again, if too many people lined up to do it, then in their sampling, and the Whopper computer can tell instantly if it's climbing or too many people are lining up to do it. Whopper computer can tabulate via tweets, and it's tied. Why do you think? What is Obamacare? All the medical records, the same supercomputers are tied into everything. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this AI pops up. I mean, everything is tied together. This might have been one of the main purposes of the facade of Obamacare. But if it goes to 85-15, then it spits out its ticker tape. Not exactly. Too many people are doing it. So it's Ministry of Information. Then they push VCR tape incident and adverse events, inserting the movie into the VCR tape and hands being chopped off. They push their adverse events to scare people, so then the percentages move back to the levels it once. This is the reason for presentations like Senator Johnson. Remember, it's a harmful RFK Jr., the reason for that fraud. Okay, you think a Kennedy is on our side? Are you kidding me? Oh, I knew Matt was one of those people. He's saying there was no VCR tape injury at all when they rolled it out in 2021. Is it really? Is that what I'm saying? There was VCR tape injury. But one of the primary reasons for it was to create the 80-20 balance they want. They can't just have RFK Jr. I'm saying, Matt, you're saying the reason for the VCR tape injury was none other than to make sure the non-movie renters group was big enough so the hatred would create enough friction for them to feed upon? Yes. The first grade truther just runs around. They want to kill everybody. They want to go Georgia Guidestones. They don't want to go on the Georgia. They go out and cry at the Georgia Guidestone site. First grade truthers. They want it back, and they just want to take the population down to 5 people. And look, even Melvin Pease said it in this carbon equation, something has to go to 0. They want all the first grade truthers believing they want to take the whole population out, because that hides the fact that they use the populations to feed themselves via loose energy. Are they still out there using the word genocide? Hey, old man in a chair, do you tune into Quantum of Conscience? I wish you well, my friend. In summary, I'm not saying that the harm these caricatures were putting forth did not exist. Not saying what Senator Johnson or RFK Jr. was saying did not exist. But those caricatures were put out into the system to balance the ratios, so the hated camp would be large enough for the not milk to use it. This is obvious at this point. There is no chance that U.S. Senator Johnson or any U.S. senator or a particular dickhead like Johnson is on our side. Not the side of the people, the side of like those that see the world the way we do. It's not possible. Therefore, when he's saying something that appears to be what we would once said, you have to be particularly skeptical. Pushing, quote, adverse events and VCR tape injury to protect people is not what U.S. senators do. So there's something else going on. I mean, do we not see that? Are there any first grade truthers still here? It's possible many first graders still believe that they wanted 100% movie rental, that they didn't want the 80-20 balance, that they wanted everybody to do it. And then by doing it, that would create mass genocide. Let's just move on. My God, I hope we've cleaned out. There's BitChute available for you. Cat videos and BitChute. Look at this. We're finally on number 2. 20 minutes for just number one. The others go a little bit more quickly. As a reminder, this is a list of important principles to help real people guide themselves through life. Search for the meaning of life inside yourself. Get in touch with the part of you that may not be here. These major answers in life are never out there to be found, never to be searched out on some quest. It's one of the biggest ruses in this entire reality. This is the Grail quest. This is the Monty Python mockery of the searching for the Grail. The Dalai Lama ain't no help here. I went to Tibet once. Where is he, Tibet or Nepal? I don't know the difference. I don't care. I screamed outside of his palace. I said, "You got answer? You got it." And then him and Richard Gere stuck their head out the window and said, "Be gone. Be gone with you. You ain't got answer." Richard Gere then pulled the shade down. Okay. The meaning of life starts by simply realizing that life has meaning. It's not what Stephen Hawking says. If your inner knowing tells you it has meaning and this experience has a purpose, then there was no Big Bang. Sorry. These ideas are incompatible. It matters not if scientific experiment can support things like the Big Bang. Scientific experiment supports the reality ruse in this place. We know that. I don't care what science tells me at this point. Neil deGrasse Tyson, thou art a villain. How many people realize that they're here for a reason? 1%, less than 1%? If the system makes you feel worthless and like a nobody, then that's great news. Again, apply the principle of opposites. If they push the Big Bang, then that bogus story tells you who you really are, and it's the opposite of what they say. You're timeless and powerful. When Stephen Hawking tells people about the Big Bang, does that bring meaning to anybody's life? Of course not. The science of this reality is designed to make people feel insignificant because the reality itself is designed to make people feel insignificant. That is the experience here. The science is actually accurately reflecting what the reality is saying. They're not faking it. This is what the reality is reflecting. The scientific experiment is reflecting and recording a ruse. We know that now. I'm not saying it's a hoax at the scientific level and they're all in on it. The University of Indiana researcher goes home to wife and kids knowing he just fooled everybody. No, they're collecting up real data and evidence, but even the senses themselves play for the wrong team. They play for the material plane. These people aren't in on it. They're reflecting back what the reality ruse is telling them. We have to see through it. What is it? What did he say? The governing dynamics. John Nash. We have to see the governing dynamics of this false place. The university eggheads are simply analyzing the data they're given by a reality that endlessly plays a trick. So once again, Richard Feynman, if it disagrees with scientific experiment, it's wrong. No, if it agrees with scientific experiment, it's wrong. And it's fooling you at the spiritual level, you goddamn son of a beach. If you take into account Darwin's crap and the full line of your supposed evolution with potentially tens of millions of ancestors slithering around on scaly bellies, then we are told the chances of us being here right now, being born in this time period, is 1 in trillions. If you're listening to me now, you got so lucky that somewhere along that line of evolution, all the millions of things that had to come before you, none of that chain was ever broken. Do you know how lucky you are? Your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was a small mammal, just worrying about not getting squashed by a brontosaurus. Matt believes in dinosaurs. Then the grandfather you knew almost went off with a man. Yeah, the grandfather, you didn't know that about your grandfather. He almost went off with a man in the jungles of Vietnam. He attended what they call Vogue Night in a Ho Chi Minh nightclub and once yelled, "Good morning, Vietnam," in the arms of another man. See, if that happened, ain't no procreation. You understand how that works? Fortunately for you, Vogue Night got old, and when Saigon fell, your grandfather entered the plane thinking about women. He shortly thereafter met your grandmother. You see, the point is simple. This system and its science tells you that the chance of you sitting here, listening to the words coming out of my mouth, is so ridiculously remote, it's inconceivable to the human brain. It's like 1 in 10 trillion or more that you're listening to me right now. Think about that long chain of slithery creatures that had to come before you. So you know what? Rule of opposites. Again? The rule of opposites. It means that the chances of you sitting here is 1 to 1. It's 100%. When ratios, probabilities, and chances and statistics get so absurd as presented by the not milk and its science, we know just the opposite is true. So the chances of you sitting here, it's 100%. You were meant to be here right now. Not 1 in a trillion, 1 to 1. Guess what? That's the best news of all time. Your inner knowing tells you for sure that this life has meaning and serves a purpose. And if that's so, you existed before birth, and you will certainly exist after death. Number 3, to help real people navigate this reality, beware the pull of its frequency. This life, some sort of a tug of war, using an analogy of a radio station or frequencies. It always wants to pull you down the dial towards its radio station and its frequency, so you become susceptible to its suggestion. The overwhelming majority of people in the West are either on the not milk's frequency exactly or just off. Those that are on it exactly literally are running downloads. Who knows if their thoughts are even their own anymore? If you've allowed yourself to be jamming to its oldies at that end of the not milk radio dial, then it will decide your life for you, and people will just go along with it. And what they want to achieve in life is what the not milk wants, but they think it's what they want. People on the frequency falsely believe that their decisions are their own. For most people, they're not. If you, by choice, turn yourself to the not milk frequency, then you've just SETI Alpha 5 yourself. What? You've just SETI Alpha 5'd yourself. That means you've figuratively put those little creatures from Star Trek The Wrath of Khan into your own ears. Remember in the movie, Khan said to Chekhov, the creatures make a person susceptible to suggestion. Can't do the Khan voice. The not milk does the same thing to the weak-minded on the radio station, but in a little bit different way. This is basically what I call the human download. No one has nasty little creatures that look like Ellen in their ears, but the not milk has other mechanisms, technologies, for lack of better words, spells, something that affect the metaphysical level of reality that makes most people around us bow down to what it wants and do what the not milk suggests and defend reality like the palace guard. Those on the frequency or very close we refer to as being on the ship of fools. When you step into a lifeboat to get off, most of the frequencies can be broken and become static. To no longer receive the frequencies at all, you must spend years in the lifeboat, rowing farther and farther away from it. Metaphysically or spiritually, not physically, not trying to get as far away from HARP as possible. Nothing physical. That's not the armor we're trying to create here. The system knows that it no longer needs to work hard to convince the masses of anything if people are willingly tuned to its frequency, and they've agreed to tune in. For example, if it wants to put the entire world back into a face covering, it knows that all the people are tuned into its radio station already. They simply have to receive the signal, say through news headlines over a few days, and then they will adopt the suggested new behavior without thinking, almost overnight. They think that's normal. We think it's strange, but then we're called out as one of those people. When we go to local stores to shop, all we need to do to check the news headlines, if we don't watch the news, is just see if the masks have picked back up. I know the news has been running scary stories about some new made-up variant when I go to the Target and I see 5 or 10 masks. Oh, they must be running scary stories again. It's so friggin' predictable. At this point, there's a tremendous amount of evidence that the download in people actually exists. And even if our terminology is bad, what is generally going on is very real. We don't understand the exact mechanism or technology, if you can even call it that. But that was kind of the point maybe of Arthur C. Clarke's creepy observation between tech and magic. People run the same scripts when you talk to them, mostly to defend the actions of this system. Those exactly tuned into the system's radio station are even easier to spot than the body snatched in the movie. They do everything but scream and point. In an argument, they'll never give you an inch toward your side. They'll never move off the position of the system. They'll never abandon their defense of it. They will extend an invisible antenna and become the palace guard. They will forever make excuses for the not milk's intrusions. Even 5 legal licks inside a German ice cream parlor can be justified by the zombies around us. I'm not joking. In a city in Germany, I think it was 2020, it was made illegal to take more than 5 licks of an ice cream cone on site. Once the people got across the street, I guess the rule no longer applied. Safely across the street, they could decide to continue licking the ice cream or even jam the cone into their armpit if they wanted to, but they could only take 5 licks within a certain number of feet from the ice cream parlor. Were German police running around outside with tape measures, running after little old ladies who snuck in a 6th lick? Most of our friends and family on the frequency work hard to defend this type of insanity. They would say back to me, Matt, I hear you. I mean, some towns or jurisdictions around the world may be going a bit too far, but it's best to err on that side, isn't it, Matt? It's best to err on the side of staying safe, don't you think? Zombie phrases like, stay safe, and things like that give the body snatched away and those on the frequency. In this case, staying safe is not to be confused with stay gold pony boy. If you're listening to this, you've jumped off the ship of fools and you've swam to the shore perhaps many years ago as it sailed far away. The divide between you and your friends gets further as the ship sails farther. The moment you realize one of your friends can't even take a tiny step in your direction in a discussion, don't bother discussing anything with them but sports and Oscar nominees. Never try for a second to convince someone of anything important who has proven to you to be body snatched. They're on the frequency, and in some way, they're getting a download. I don't know any other way to describe it. It's been proven true. Don't say another word to them about the stuff that we talk about, lest they scream and point at you like Donald Sutherland. If it's an old friend, limit your conversations to the NFL, high school girlfriends or boyfriends, and the Bill Cosby sexual assault trial. Summary of this section. In this reality, as long as we're alive, there's a frequency here, a radio station, a download. There's no place on earth we can go to get away from it. Separating from it has nothing to do with physical distance. Now, the fact that we're not affected now is probably a pretty good sign. It might mean we never will be affected, but I'm just saying to always be aware of it. Never stop polishing your armor. Number 4, as you navigate this life as a real person, this is being aware of the number one breadcrumb it puts out to people that are interested in the types of things that we are. We are a rare and unique breed in this place. So finding and analyzing the bad guy in this reality is exactly what it wants our type of people doing and wasting time on. Most of us here, at least at this channel, are aware of that. The baited hook, the lure of getting back into the bog, getting back into the weeds. Who's the bad guy? What's the Federal Reserve up to? Is the mud flood real? Architecture. We're aware of the bog, most people here, but I can't tell you guys how many people I've seen say, come here, and we lose them. We lose them back to the SGT report. Does that even still exist? Or the X-22 report? Or I don't know. I don't think we lose people back to Alex Jones, but other parts, BitChute and VCR injury reports and architecture and mudflood and Tentaria. And it seems like, once we get to this level, we've left it all behind. Not for all of us. I've observed this. I've seen a lot of names that I've known for many, many years come and go back into the bog. Be aware that this temptation, this breadcrumb is designed by this reality for people like us. And the number one thing, the number one yellow breadcrumb is analyze the bad guy. Point out the bad guy. You can do it. Keep bringing out the police lineup. Eventually, you'll get the bad guy, and eventually you'll be able to send him off to jail. There is no final bad guy here to get. As I've talked about many times, the number of culprits that are presented to our, quote, truth community gives reality away. No real world could present this many culprits. Old money, Federal Reserve, Archons, Anunnaki, Nephilim, Satan. I mean, we've done this, okay? We've done... The number of bad guys that just stays on the table forever, no real world could keep supporting that. And there is evidence when you jump into each particular bog, or they would go away. It's the same cast of characters every time. This is a joke. It's a fake world. No way this is supported. Oh, that's the Men in Black and secret societies. I forgot. So this is advice on how real people should navigate this reality. If you can see what we can see, always remember its main tactics, how desperate it is for you to focus on anything outside of yourself to get your attention, to move you even a little bit back down the radio dial, or even one step back towards the bog. Well, Matt, there's this thing, called spirit cooking. And if my focus and research finally tells me what spirit cooking is all about, then that means we might be able to expose these creeps who perform these sort of satanic rituals. We can finally get some sort of a win. Shouldn't I look at? No. This reality does not work like that. It will always have a breadcrumb. Never take it ever again. This reality does not hand out societal wins that benefits real people. If a certain person or group goes off to jail, it's part of the Not Milk script in making it believable. Who needs any of the stinky breadcrumbs it puts forth? Who the F cares what spirit cooking is or what we could find out in our dumb waste of time research? Who cares? Now it's time to say it. What about yourself? The Not Milk will give away what we considered to be truth through its graduated animal farms, and they will lay breadcrumbs to pull you outside of yourself whenever it can, so you go off and chase rabbits. In terms of any investigation or anything outside of ourselves, there's some clues we can use that tell us about ourselves, of course, but there's a difference between pure truth and tainted truth. Pure truth, called PT. Tainted truth, TT. PT, or pure truth, is truth that leads, or some sort of information or knowledge that leads you to better know yourself, so you can see that the whole of you is bigger than this place. Okay, that's pure truth. TT, or tainted truth, it comes in researching the world and looking at its bad actors, or spending endless hours on its mud flood or Tartaria or architecture or whatever. That's tainted truth. The whole reality is a trick to present TT. TT is what it wants you doing and wasting your time on, and it pulls you deeper into the bog. PT never comes from the screen. It won't give real people PT. You have to find it somewhere else. The outer ring of reality deals in endless TT in magnitudes that are incomprehensible. For example, some truth researchers have spent years studying the Rothschilds and other old money families. Okay, what for? Let's say you get all the correct information. What's it going to do for you? Sure, these minions are part of, say, the Not Milk managerial level on the org chart. So what? What does collecting information on these families get for you? If you can prove no pee-pee, no planes, so what? All the crap it dishes is TT. It's truth out there. Come look at the outer ring of the screen. Every time we do, we give it energy and attention, finding out with 100% certainty what exactly happened to the Titanic. TT. Per the way the reality is structured, its mysteries can't be solved anyway. Tainted truth is pointless research because it tells you nothing about yourself. 99 point whatever of everything we've ever spent time on in terms of truth research is tainted truth. Now, there's only one possible advantage to doing all this. We've talked about it. You see so much absurdity, you step back and say, wait a second. There's no way all of this could be occurring. There's no way all of this could be being pulled off. Then that tainted truth research will actually leads to something. There's only one way out. One way it leads to something beneficial. The Not Milk or screen has masterfully convinced the truth researcher that TT research is important. Matt, we must understand why they cover the right eye, right? Why? Let them cover it up. Who cares? We must find out what exactly Mystery Babylon means. Why? It might be important to them. Is it important to you? Why? Why would it be? Who cares? It has nothing to do with way about yourself. Nothing. What is important to that entity is not important to our type. Leave all the TT research behind. That means 99% of truth channels should go away. Remember we looked at all those, quote, conspiracy posters with their endless topics, links, lines, arrows, and connections? I mean, that by itself is impossible. Look at the triple conspiracies that exist inside most topics. You see, the truth researcher has, in a way, dived off the ship of fools, just like we have. But they've dived onto another ship of fools. I'm not trying to make enemies all around here. We wonder why I have trolls, right? Saying 99% of all truth channels should go away. I'm going to tell you what I believe. They are our brethren. but they have dived off the main ship of fools, which is all mainstream stuff. Selfies, the red carpet, who's going to vote for who in the election, Republican, Democrat, all the stuff. But most of our brethren, truth conspiracy research, have dived off one ship of fools, but just found another ship of fools. So, okay, we made our way off. We believe we're in dinghies rowing away from the ship of fools in the river of insanity. Maybe we're just as fooled. We have to always keep that on the table. But we observe our brethren, who we really considered, at least initially, to be very similar to us. They want to leave the ship of fools too. I don't believe the news. This isn't quite right. Then the submarine comes up, says, "Get off the ship of fools. Here's your rescue. Let's look at the Fed. Let's look at Tartaria. Here's the world the way it really is." This false submarine comes up. Oh, we found a way off. This submarine itself was designed by the Not-Nilk to just take people that question the regular ship and to get them interested in another ship. It's just the same thing with a little bit different packaging. And I can hear you screaming at me, "Oh, sure, Matt, you're the only one legitimate. You and your little group here, your ilk here, the only ones rowing in the right direction, the only one in a dinghy that's not controlled by the Not-Nilk." You're right. I must always keep that on the table, but at least I'm aware of it. Okay, that's a difference between groups. We do leave that on the table. Right now, I think our path is correct. I don't think we're on a Not-Nilk designed dinghy. If we are, though, we will soon be aware of it and change up yet again. Getting back to the main points of this section, remember, tainted truth or TT truth is out there at the screen level. It's all pointless because it tells you nothing about yourself. The truth research topics, it's 99+% TT and 1% or less PT. A pure truth is something that tells you about yourself. These real breadcrumbs are very hard to find, considering that's the reason for the complexity of the TT truth. Tells you about yourself. Tells you about why or what you're doing here in this reality, or what you need to accomplish, or what its meaning is. These breadcrumbs are very rare, but they can be found. They're extremely rare. And earlier I may have said something like, they never can be found out at the screen layer or the outer ring of reality. There is exception to that. It's the spiritual message that come through art, or things I've talked about a million times. The movie Dances with Wolves, the line in The Last Samurai, you could spend a life looking for the perfect blossom and it would not be a wasted life. There are little nuggets inside, things that actually come from the screen. Row, row, row your boat, nursery rhymes, Humpty Dumptys, those sorts of things. These nuggets can be found anywhere. I don't want to make it seem like there's never anything to be found at the screen layer. It does, for some reason, have to carry forth its nursery rhymes, its stuffed Lennons, and its Humpty Dumptys. A summary of an earlier section is this. Because this system, this Not-Nilk, has put forth so much effort into its tainted truth presentation, it's put so much out, it crosses a threshold where we stop and say, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous, the number of presentations it's making and the number of places it wants to pull me. No real world could do this, and I'm walking away from all of it. Through it's worked too hard, Not-Nilk. You've given yourself away. Maybe it's time in the cycle of the ages for you to give yourself away. So real people finally say, this is ridiculous, and I'm walking away. Creeps who appear on television like Melvin P. and Jimmy Savile. What did we coin with that? It was Pervert Robes. He has a Pervert Robes collection that's still available at Harrods if you act now. George Soros, Santa Claus, Schwab. Low-level servants they are of something bigger. I don't know how to describe it. It lurks in the shadows. Probably it can never be found. Who knows what they even understand of it? Are they on a different sort of download? Would they even know what we're talking about? It's just a way of saying something. But you shouldn't care one bit how it works at this point going forward. I'm getting into my mid-50s. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of time left to do the work. And we got to do the work, not this nonsense. We shouldn't care one bit if there's a secret council that sits in front of a hearth composed of human bones that plans this and that out. They're going to do what they're going to do at this point. So what? So what? Every Star Wars movie needs a Darth Vader. This is a movie of some kind. This bad guy's a role player here. Sure, there's something much higher up the org chart than those idiots that present themselves on television like Melvin P. But if you try to find out who or what it is, you're playing its game. Whatever is, you could say, out there may not be real at all. The outer ring, screen, or not milk may break down like the end of reality as I remember it being presented in the movie The 13th Floor. I got to see that movie again. It's hard to find. But all I remember is you get to the end of reality, it's like all code, there's just nothing there. That's probably what it is. There's no final boss level here that can be touched or arrested or put into a cell with Hillary and Bill Clinton. This is why I refer to vague terms like not milk and vague terms like the asshole dark. The Christian notion of Satan is correct, in my opinion, in terms of what its goal is. It baits you to look for it. And if you're looking for the bad guy, then you're not doing worry about yourself activities. Endlessly researching the bad guy is screwing yourself out of what life is for and never leaving the bog. It can't doom you unless you choose to follow its instruction manual and doom yourself. The beauty is, an understanding of the bad guy is not necessary in any way. I assure there ain't going to be no test. You didn't fully understand the bad. Has nothing to do with what we're supposed to be doing here, in my opinion. But what does your inner knowing tell you? It's obvious. And I don't feel like we've wasted time. I really don't. I feel what I did was necessary. I don't feel like I wasted time at all. So I have plenty of time left to do what I need to do. Looking at the bad guy, if you can exit the bog, can tell you something about yourself if you can back up far enough away from it. For example, the guidance of the rule of opposites, one of the most important things we have in navigating what's left. Before birth, you came here for a reason. Something here is trying to block you from understanding what that is and actually doing it. If you didn't come here for a reason, why is this thing trying to block us? Is this common sense? Am I missing something? You can take the bait, as 99 point whatever percentage of everybody does, whether you're in the truth community or not, or you can swim away and find out for yourself what the whole of you needs from this earthly experience. That's all of reality. Forget a half page. That's all of reality in 2 sentences. We came here for a reason, and something's trying to block us. Is there anybody here that doesn't see there's something very obvious that's trying to block us, that works so hard in its presentation to block us? Okay, we can see it. The people around us can't see it. Matt, that's just what a modern society evolves into. And it makes sense that 12 to 15 years ago, certain lifestyle choices were completely taboo, and now everybody bows down. Just 12 to 15 years, the entire society's been upended. Now everybody bows down to certain choices which were taboo 50. There's thousands of examples like that where no real world can do this. It's just everybody just makes excuses for it, runs the download. Matt, you don't understand how a modern society works. Okay, we can see it, but once you can see it, it's so obvious how hard it's working to block us. This is the best news of all time. It's giving us, without trying, PT truth. So I hear it coming. Somebody might be yelling right now saying, Matt, that ain't shit. The notion of good and evil, Matt, goes back a few thousand years. You know, you're here, somebody's trying to block us. It's been done before. Christians spoke of Satan a few thousand years before you came up with not milk, you imitating son of a beach. No, I think my 2 senses are a bit different. Okay, a little bit different where it matters. Okay, you came here for a reason. Says you existed before birth and that you chose this place. The second part is finding out yourself why you are here. The reason in doing it yourself. And looking to the not milk, once we can see through it, to actually provide guidance on what you should be doing based on what it suggests you should be doing, and you just do the opposite. Not seeking answers from any gurus or from any books or seeking out or trying to have a relationship with God. This isn't the place to know God. This is the place to know you. If you're engrossed in mudflood research, can you tell me after all that, what is that telling you about yourself? Well, for one thing, it tells me I'm interested in mudflood research. Well, I'll give you that. I can't argue that. A few minutes back, we talked about our brethren, at least initially, wanting to get off the ship of fools just as we wanted to get off and got off, but then finding the submarine crafted by the not milk that would provide the more customized distraction that our brethren is actually looking for and truth addicted to. When we talked about that, you can take it a step further. I just had an email exchange with somebody, no mention or anything like that of who it was, but she was basically saying that, Matt, a lot of in the truth community, they're downloaded in the same way that we say the public is downloaded. There's no doubt about it. originally, or many years ago, conservative or Q supporters were actually, we could kind of consider our brethren. Well, you can see how downloaded, how insane that movement has gone. People flying their Trump flags when nothing changed. It's all part of the same not milk presentation. We can see that they've completely lost their minds, and it is like a download or radio station. But then that's really no different than many other segments in our truth community. Yes, if regular people can be on the download, then people we considered our brethren can be on the same download. No doubt about it. Then by that notion, Matt, you could be on the download. Okay, I can't, like I said, I'm big enough not to take that off the table. If I'm aware of it, if I'm aware I'm a little kid's party and there's actually a magician there and I'm aware that's not a real magician, then I can at least look for the card up the sleeve, right? At least if I'm leaving it on the table and I'm aware of it, it does put me in a better position than most others. From Truther on to the Fox News watchers, that they're getting to the bottom of it. At least I'm keeping on the table. I could be fooled. Good point. My uncle watches Fox News, and he's for a second thinking this could all be false. This could be a manipulation. It's a complete difference. He's watching it, believing in every bit of it. He's trying to tell us how Brett Baer on Fox is real news and CNN's not and MSNBC's not. And he's believing if he just left on the table that I could be being fooled, well, that would put him in a superior position. But no, what they're saying about the anti-seismic activityism and that, it's all real. None of it's cooked up. Why would the not milk ever do that? Summary of this section before we move on. As you know, I don't care one bit about the police lineup of bad guys any longer. I don't care if Pope Francis transforms into the cartoon character Skeletor the moment he leaves the Vatican audience hall. He probably does. Understanding the creepy org chart does not change the work you and I need to do for ourselves. All you need to understand about the bad guy is basically one thing. It's a role. The bad guys and minions here play a role that you can use to benefit yourself. Matters not what the George Bush creatures understand about their roles. They might not even understand their roles. As time goes by, I think they understand less and less. Whether were designed to be the assholes of this reality, or they broke the rules and hijacked. They hijacked the reality like the first grade truther. It doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter. It is a role that they were put here to play. They are not bigger than this place. They are a character actor in mass. Many minions here. What you need to learn about yourself is exactly the same either way, no matter what they are. It has nothing to do with them. A good story needs a bad guy. Many smart people believe these character actors here are lower spiritual entities than you are, like Tony puts forth with the notion of the sequential incarnation. The bad guy's power here is limited. There's something good in this game construct that will always offer real people clues to guide them along. We're just starting to tune into reality's positive messages. They will keep coming to us, no doubt about it. What we see is not delusional. Stuffed Lenins and Humpty Dumptys exist for a reason. Sometimes works of art can have multiple meanings at the same time. Is this the concept of superposition? I mean, there's so many examples. What came to mind when I started writing this, and this part's not done, is George Michael's song Father Figure. Could be a Schrodinger's cat in superposition. People said, that's a, you know what? That's a Plato song. That's a Lego Maego Wedo. Can I say the word? You know, put your tiny hand in mine. It's creepy, right? But some people have said it's like a song from higher self. I will be your father figure. I mean, okay, it might not be the best example, but there's a lot of art there's a lot of things symbols can be interpreted two ways at the same time. The idea is this the concept of superposition? Okay, there's all this quantum stuff have another meaning. That's likely in this weird place. Now, George Michael, Father Figure, that's a bad example of something that could be in superposition or from higher self, man. That's a pedestrian song, Matt. Put your tiny hand in mine. What's the other one? If you'll be the desert, I'll be the sea, whatever. If you ever hunger for me. What's the other part? Sometimes love can be mistaken for a crime. But then some would say, that's just because he's a creepy crab driver in the video stalking that supermodel, trying to prove he actually likes women. The swastika symbol is an example of two meanings at the same time. The ancient tradition of the symbol is very positive, as you know. The Not Milk worked very hard for like 80 years to corrupt what was initially positive by associating it with a man and his bad mustache. So what does this world-famous example in the swastika imply? That the symbol on its own has no power. It's what real people interpreting it and what comes out the other side after that interpretation. It has no meaning on its own. It has no power on its own. It needs real generative beings to focus on it, to put their attention on it, to provide it with some sort of power energy that is then translated out via good or evil on the back end. Any symbol, the Nike swoosh that's on 40 million t-shirts and sweatshirts, has no power on its own, is nothing on its own. It's harnessed by the egregore. People like the Nike swoosh. They use it in some way, but on its own, it's nothing. The generative beings are giving some sort of power to it. And this is actually what's funny about the Nike swoosh, guys. This debate goes on, right? What is it? Is it the wings of Hermes or the shoes of Hermes? Or is it it's Saturn's rings, Matt? It's Nike. See, Nike's a goddess, the winged goddess. And so why would you think the swoosh is not? It's called Nike, so isn't the swoosh Nike? Whatever. People don't go there. It's either Saturn's rings or it's Hermes. What about Nike? It's called Nike okay, whatever. You know what? Who cares what it is? I don't care if it's cow dung. Off the book, guys. But once again, I mentioned Nike. I've got to talk about this for a few minutes. Once again, we have another rags to riches story presented in kind of the same way. Have you ever heard this one? Phil Knight sold his sneakers and sold his wares out the back. Out the back. You selling something out the back of your trunk? Out the back of the trunk, he sold his sneakers illegally around, was it the University of Oregon or whatever? What you selling, Bat? You selling rock? You selling blow? Get your baby out the street. I got sneakers here. You can't get this quality anywhere. Matt, you deny he sold them? No, I don't deny he sold them, but he was slated to, it's part of a script. He was slated to be who he was. He was slated to be ultra successful. It's all part of a script. It's not just all the stories about Silicon Valley, Cisco Systems just crawled through the sewers, rigging up Stanford, the first internet. They pulled the cables themselves through the sewers. It's all a script. They really did it, but they're destined to get to where they ended up. Okay. And now, did Phil Knight know that? Whatever. It doesn't matter. We live in a script, ladies and gentlemen. And you know how we know that? The themes are always repeating. How many Silicon Valley stories of coming out of the garage? Steve coming out of the garage. IBM was terrified because two guys were coming out of a garage and had to rush their personal computer to market, creating Microsoft and Intel. What was the other? HP came out of a garage. I mean, Matt, you don't think they were really in a garage? No, I think they really were in a garage. I think it's real yet fake at the same time. It's real. I think there was somebody in a garage, but it's like if you say it was like slated by the Not Milk, knowing what it would become, even during the days of the garage. It's hard to. It's a script. We live in a script. Let's talk about it some other time. No, I don't think it's completely fake. That's how the genius of this reality works. So what you saying? This world is a fake script, even though what happened on the ground is basically real. You could go to the HP garage in 1968. It's not coming out too well, but that's basically what I'm saying. We'll talk about it some other time. Next bit of advice for real people, as few or as many of us as there are, to navigate this reality. The bad guys serving the asshole dark work you over your entire life so that you identify with the aspects of you that, number one, are most closely related or linked to this place, like your ego and body, only associating with one arm of the Vitruvian Man. And number two, to put you into a mindset that will generate energy for it. Now, we know this, but it's good to keep this in mind as we go through life. It works hard to get most people to believe their spiritual self doesn't even exist. Remember the two arms of the Vitruvian Man. In another example, the spiritual tug of war we've talked about on several occasions taking place, with the spiritual side against all the cast of characters that the Not Milk has lined up on the material side. And it doesn't seem fair. On the material side, thousands of presentations and 1,000 cast of characters, and Hillary Clinton is pulling, the Incredible Hulk is pulling, and Carl Sagan is pulling, and Neil deGrasse Fed is pulling, and everybody that makes a false presentation. And all that's on the other side is the spiritual self, or you trying to connect to spiritual self. That doesn't seem fair at all. It's not fair in favor of spiritual self. Once there's a certain realization, it can pull over the entire not milk side of the rope in 1 second. But before that moment of understanding or empowerment, I mean, until that happens, people feel they can't win. It doesn't look good. Like the imagery of it's just you or trying to find your spiritual self on one side of that cavern. Well, it's that scene in Lord of the Rings, I guess the first one, where Gandalf is about to fall off the cliff and battle the Baal Rock or whatever. He's like, fly, you fools. And there's that cavern. So you and your spiritual self and try to find your higher self. You're on one side on the rope and you look around, there's nobody around. And on the other side of the rope, every single orc in that whole damn movie, every single goblin on the other side of the cavern on the rope, it's a tug of war, is every single, the trolls and the Incredible Hulk and Hillary Clinton and everybody we just mentioned, and army after army. It's like, well, how the heck am I supposed to win? And then you look over and it gets even worse. You look over on the other side of the cavern, your own ego and body is pulling on the wrong side, of the material side. Of course, it's set up to pull on the wrong side. It's like, is that us? That's me. That's our own ego, frontal lobes that thinks in English, and body is pulling on the wrong side of the rope in front of in front of me, and the ego is Hillary Clinton, and right behind is Neil deGrasse Fed. It's like, we're really screwed. So you say, first thing to do is get everybody on the right side. Unify. Body, ego, we're all working together. You get over here. You pull on this side. Get over here. Then it's like, whoa, wait a second. We have the ability to pull real powerful. We're a real hardcore pipe-hitting spiritual son of a beach. Pull all the orcs over. No problem. Now, to me, spiritual side, spiritual in general, I keep it simple, as you know, just means the opposite of believing that all you are is derived from this place, that you are of something that's not in this place or larger than this place. That's all it is to me. All this mumbo jumbo on YouTube and the esoteric and occult books and all this stuff that just the Not Milk loves when it's complicated. There's no reason to complicate it. Simply knowing that this life is just a train stop and you're bigger than this place. That's all spiritual means. There's another part of you. Why make it more complicated? Why do what the Not Milk wants? I don't know what shadow work is, but I assure you, you don't need to do it. I don't care to find out what shadow work is. I don't give a horse shit what all this mumbo jumbo is. Mumbo jumbo. Mumbo jumbo. Matt, it's getting late in the video. You're losing it. Yes, I am. I'm going to hold it together, Matt, hold together. Spiritual, quote, is just realizing that the other arm of the Vitruvian man exists. How many times did in elementary school, junior high, high school, middle school, did the teachers or anybody you ever associated with, college, say, you're bigger than this place. You're more than it. They never said it. Because they never said it, rule of opposites. That's the greatest news of all time. If they were saying it in every class and every grade, we should be concerned. More rule of opposites, endless rule of opposites. Neil deGrasse Fed says, here you are on our star map, or what is this, the Sagittarius arm, and this is the Orion arm of the Milky Way Ooh, Milky Way. Anybody got one? He says, Snickers? No. Okay. Oh, we're in the Orion arm here, which if you're Mandela affected, he used to say we're in the Sagittarius arm, and that's another thing. Here you are. That's us. In the middle of nowhere. And this galaxy is trillions and trillions of miles, and that's just one galaxy. There's trillions of... Okay, Matt, that's a Pootie Tang Award. We know how they try to make us out to be nothing and to be in the middle of nowhere. Okay, yeah, Pootie Tang Award. But again, it's the greatest news of all time, because if he says that, then you're the center of everything. We're the center of everything. Oh, but let's just shut the whole channel down. Greatest news of all time. Let's run out in the street naked. What we're talking about now and its pathetic tactics in this regard basically explains this massive push to, let's just say, alternative lifestyle choices. I can't read what I wrote here. Trans-Siberian Railroad gender bender pushes, things like that. It's all explainable in this light. So new ways to identify, and every way that's presented in terms of new ways to identify is, once again, once you can see it, it's so simple. Things of this place. Do you think it'll give me an identifier for the other arm of the Vitruvian Man? Oh, I don't think so. It pretends that doesn't even exist. Look at all the new names. The demi boy and who knows what? I can't even say it. I could rattle them off, but then I'd get a banner ad at the very minimum. Pronouns. They're all Jacob Marley chains in some sense to focus your generative attention only on the things of this place. Now, this seems obvious. It seems repetitive, what I'm saying. But nobody can see this, guys. It's the greatest news of all time. If I seem like I'm repeating myself, it's like I got it. If it's so simple to you now, and it is becoming extremely simple, then your clarity on this is where it needs to be. If you're like, Matt, stop saying the same damn thing, then you are where you need to be, because nobody... You think my friend Tony, if he's listening to this, would understand one bit of what I'm saying? No. Think we're nuts. Okay, guys, looking at the time, well over an hour. I've got to shut this down now. There are like 3 more sections. I think 25 to 30 more minutes. I can't do it. I'm mentally kind of gone. I don't know why I'm kind of snapping or breaking. So we'll make this... What's this, chapter 35? This was supposed to be 1 chapter, will be 36, but we're very close. I do questions and answers of what my personal belief is on certain things. Matt, what do you think the Holy Grail means? Here's what I think it means. Could I be wrong? Sure. Questions and answers. Matt, what do you think 666 really is? Okay, Matt, what do you do that sort of thing for a chapter or 2 or 3, and then the final half page, which I think is just about 3 pages, but all of reality boiled down to that. I'm allowed to call it a half page still. Thanks for listening.